Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. We are waiting for one more minute and then we can start. So, okay, I think we can start. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to our fourth and the final session of this training program on Armenia Women Taking Action for Nature. We're preparing all the women's organizations and others who are working and engaged in gender justice and biodiversity conservation in Armenia for CBD COP17. It's wonderful to see so many of you joining us once again, coming back. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And this training program is jointly organized by the CBD Women's Caucus, the Ministry of Environment of Armenia, and the COP17 Armenian uh, presidency, as the COP17 presidency, and the CBD Secretariat, and the Royal Wallumbilla Institute. So, my name is Shruti Ajit. I'm sure you will have seen me across the various training sessions. I'm the project officer with the CBD Women's Caucus, looking at capacity development and community building. So, in case if you want and you're curious, and if you want to join the CBD Women's Caucus and want to continue engaging in these dialogues and conversations, or even after this training program, you know who to reach out to. With today's session, next slide, please. So before we start on the today's session, we're just going to go through a couple of housekeeping rules, which is that interpretation is available in Armenian. So you may use the little globe icon called interpretation on your Zoom page on the Zoom box, and please click on the language that you're most comfortable with. The second thing is please keep yourself muted, especially when speakers are talking. We do have a particular section for Q&A and comments. So until then, we request you to keep your microphones off. But possibly if your internet works, we would love to see you and your beautiful faces. So it would be really nice, even though it's a virtual meeting, we would love to see your faces. So please keep your camera on and the mics off. We do have two dedicated Q&A sessions, but please continue posting your questions in the chat throughout the session if you were to have any questions at that time. And we also are saying that this meeting is being recorded. So please make sure that if you are at any point uncomfortable with anything that you want to share, do let us know. Fatima is the comms coordinator with us, so you can reach out to any one of us with if there are any objections to this meeting being recorded. So next slide, please. So today's session is going to, so we've gone through like wonderful like history of CBD. We've gone through some of the various discussions that's happening within like reporting implementation. How does the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework get implemented? What is the CBD going to do? How are they implementing these biodiversity convention related these actions? So and then, of course, the last session was particularly focusing on gender justice within CBD. What are the key elements and decisions related to gender, and how, as women's organizations, as organizations are working on biodiversity conservation led by women, how can you all be part of this process? Well, today's session focuses on understanding the agenda for CBD COP17, which is going to happen in a couple of months, and I'm quite excited. I hope you are too. But it's basically on how decisions are negotiated. What are some of the key policy discussions that will shape the outcomes of the conference? And it's happening right there where you all are in Yerevan. So it's going to be a very, very interesting 2 hours now. So by the end of today's session, participants should have a better understanding of how a CBD COP is structured and how negotiations take place, the major agenda items expected at COP17, selected. So of course, because it's a limited time, there are like we only have 2 hours. We've picked some of the key technical decisions currently underway within the convention on what these particular negotiation agendas are and how women and civil society can engage effectively throughout the process. So with that, I am going to next slide, please. I don't know. Yes, we do have Mr. Olivier Rukundo. It's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Olivier Rukundo, who serves as the head of the Stakeholders and Partnership Unit at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. He is a legal and policy expert specializing in international environmental law, biodiversity governance, and the implementation of the global biodiversity frameworks. Through his work at the CBD Secretariat, he supports stakeholder engagement and partnership that strengthen the implementation of the convention worldwide. Today, he will provide an overview of the structure of the Conference of Parties, explain how negotiations are organized, and help us understand how different agenda items move through the COP process. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Olivier. Mr. Olivier, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see me and hear me.
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. So Shutri, I'm not sure, were you going to share the slides or should I share them?
Whichever is comfortable with you, Olivier. Do you want us? We have it in Armenian, so we can share it in Armenian. You can just tell us when to move through the slides.
Okay, I can also share it if you have interpretation. So
Okay, perfect. Yes,
yes,
you can share it.
just a second here. So I see that sharing is not permitted from my side, so perhaps it's better that you share it. So this would be the first slide, right?
Yes, that would be correct.
All right. Yeah, so let me organize myself since it's in Armenian so that I can follow. Okay, perfect. So thank you very much again for the opportunity to present here. So here we're going to basically go through an overview of what is a Conference of the Parties, the structure, agenda, and decision-making process. Second slide. So I think here what I wanted to say is that with regards to the institutional arrangements in the CBD, we have sort of different mechanisms. We have, of course, the Convention on Biological Diversity, but we have also other instruments such as the Nagoya Protocol on ABS, the Karaina Protocol, another supplementary protocol that's called the Kuala Lumpur protocol. And this is a supplementary protocol that was negotiated under the biosafety. And all of this emanated in the adoption of the convention, of course, with regards to the Rio Conference on Environment and Development that took place in 1992. Next slide. So in terms of institutional structures, in terms of the CBD, in terms of the organs of the CBD, you of course have the Conference of the Parties, which is the main governing body of the convention. And the instruments that I was referring to have their own mechanisms, which are MOP, meeting of the parties to this protocol. and we call them COP-MOP. We have one for the biosafety protocol, and also we have one for, the Carolina protocol, and one for of course, the Nagoya protocol on access and benefit sharing. And within and under the structure, we have what we call subsidiary body and different type of compliance mechanism that are in place. But in terms of the key subsidiary body, we have, of course, the subsidiary body on implementation, which is sort of geared towards making sure that the body oversees progress in the implementation of the convention and now the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. We have SUBSTA, which is a more science-based sort of body that actually oversees science, the related development under the convention. And we have, of course, now the newly established body, a subsidiary body on Article AJ that looks at issues related to traditional knowledge, innovation, and practices of Indigenous people and local communities. And where the Secretariat sits here is to service all these bodies, including the COP, and provide the facilitation for the work of the convention to work. Now let's focus, next slide, please, on what is the Conference of the Parties. The Conference of the Parties is as I said, the governing body of the convention, and it advances implementation of the convention through decision it takes in its periodic meeting. To date, the Conference of the Parties has held 16 ordinary meetings, and in a certain period of time, from 1994 to 1996, the Conference of the Parties held its ordinary meeting annually. Following a change in the rules of procedure in 2000, these meetings are now being held every 2 years, so biannually. As you all know, and that's why we're here, the 17th meeting of the Conference of the Parties will be held in Yerevan, Armenia. So the Conference of the Parties sets out a series of standing items for its provisional agenda of its meeting, namely organizational matters, report from the subsidiary body, the financial mechanism, of course, issue related to the report of the executive secretary, review of the implementation of the program of work, priority issues for review and guidance, and of course, other matters. As you will see, the Conference of the Parties, like the 17th meeting, for example, has a list of agenda items that are to be considered. Many of these items will be emanating from the subsidiary body. That is, the subsidiary body recommends to the Conference of the Parties to take decisions along certain lines. So these are the type of reference mechanism that we have under the CBD. And of course, we have also standing agenda item. So you will see that the agenda of the Conference of the Parties, sorry about this, largely depends on actually the outcomes of the subsidiary meetings that are held intersessionally. Next slide. So again, biannually, every 2 years, the meeting provide member nation a platform to access progress on global biodiversity goals and negotiate new targets. Although the CBD COP tends to be biannual, the frequency has occasionally varied, especially when significant global events or political consideration impact the scheduling. This is what happened with regards, for example, to during the COVID time, where we had to adjust sort of the frequency of the meeting vis-a-vis the sanitary situation that was in place. Next slide. So the agenda setting for the negotiations, the process typically follows this structure. The presidency and the secretariat, the presidency, in this case, the incoming presidency would be Armenia. They set out the draft provisional agenda a month in advance. This outline priority action, mandated events, and pressing global concern. Items are introduced in plenary, what is called the first reading. And then we have the negotiation that take place in several forums. We have the negotiation that take place in plenary, in working group, in contact groups. And we have also, in addition, COP-MOP, which also takes place at the same time, concurrently during the meeting uh, of the COP itself. So in that 2-week period. Next slide. So what are the main sort of steps in terms of decision making? We have what we call a conference room paper, which is a type of in-session document containing new proposal or provisional outcome that is usually only available during the specific meeting. Let me explain here. So you first have an in-session document that is prepared for the agenda item. It gets introduced into the plenary. Parties and others have expressed their views and position on the item. Once this is reflected, these views are reflected, it becomes what we call a conference room paper. The draft decisions. Decisions are only adopted in plenary. Before that point, they are considered draft decision as changes could be made. The final step of the decision making is what we call an L document, which is a limited distribution document. And these papers usually contain draft text and proposal that are being actively discussed and revised by country delegates. So I'd like to also go into the course of negotiations. I don't have a lot of time. With regards to, in the course of negotiations, before we get to the first reading, the chair of who is actually presiding over the negotiation may decide to establish a contact group. Once the contact group is established, the contact group will actually focus on trying to resolve divergences of views with regards to positions, with regards to also views of parties and others. It is important to understand that observers here can, of course, speak, but they have to be supported by parties for their views to be made sort of to make into the decision-making process. As regards to the format of other type of negotiations, we also have informal groups that can be sort of set up by the chair to deal with contentious issues. And those are also set up by the chair to, sort of also try to, in an informal setting, sort of resolve some of the issues that may arise. We have, for instance, friends of the chair that could be established, small consultation between parties. If, for example, there are 2 or 3 parties that have diverging views, and that the chair may ask them to get together to sort of be able to sort of try to find a solution with regards to the different positions. So coming up in Yerevan, that will be my last sort of point, is that, so this was my last slide. Coming up in Yerevan, we have, of course, a number of issues that are being at the table that would require contact group, that we know will require contact group because of their complexities. So the Secretariat, in conjunction with the presidency, is preparing scenario notes as regards to what items would be sort of require contact group. We have also, in consultation with the Bureau, consulted with regards to who could be the co-chairs of this contact group, the co-facilitators. So basically, this is the decision-making process that I wanted to describe in these 10 minutes that I have been afforded. So I'm happy to answer any question if there are any.
Thank you so much, Olivier, for that wonderful session. And I know that it's not easy to condense decades of process into like a 10-minute, but you did like such a great job in breaking it down so easily for so many of us to understand. And understanding the COP functions provide us an important foundation to be able to engage meaningfully. So especially in negotiations. So thank you so much, Olivier, for this. And if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat, and we will take it during a dedicated Q&A session. But with that, I was just wondering, we're gonna see how many of you actually listen to Olivier properly. It's just a fun quiz. We have a Zoom poll. Um, can we launch the questions, please? So the questions are in Armenian in the slide, but we wanted to say a check is Which document contains the text that parties negotiate? So we just wanted to see how how you've been able to get. So just put in your answers. There's of course you've got to. And then the second question is what usually happens when parties cannot agree on text? And then at what stage can observers have the greatest influence on draft decisions? Oh, we do have a lot of people who actually did listen and that's a great indication of Olivier sharing and definitely. Um, Olivier, do you want to do the honors of sharing the right answers? Maybe you can end the poll and launch. Um,
Sure. Yes, so just with just a few just explanation. So yeah, so which document contains the text of that parties negotiate? Indeed, it's the document that actually is introduced and discussed during the actual session after the in sessions, and it's in. I think most of the people got it. Is the CRP. What I think the other answers is in terms of the sort of what usually happens when parties cannot agree on text. The secretariat definitely doesn't decide. It's parties who have to negotiate. The paragraph or the text is not deleted, but there is like usually a bracketing processes or sort of that can be held in plenary, and usually this is in contact group. Uh, uh, so it depends on the stage indeed. And at what stage can an observer, have the greatest influence? I think the right answers here is really while the stress text is being drafted and negotiated and well before, and because that's the time that you can actually sort of ask for support for parties for your position. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for that, and that really helps. And hopefully, the ones who have commented and those who got it right, kudos to you. And the ones who have not, it's a learning process. We are all learning, constantly learning about everything. So please don't worry. And I hope you got clarity on these processes, and we will continue supporting you and building your capacities to be able to be part of these negotiations. Now, with that fun element, we move on to the next presentation, which will look specifically at the agenda for COP17 and highlight some of the major policy discussions participants can accept. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Karen Kachaturian. Mr. Karen serves as a chief specialist with the Specially Protected Areas of Nature and Biodiversity Policy Department of the Ministry of Environment of Armenia. He is also Armenia's national focal point for the subsidiary body on Article 8J. He is the national focal point to IPBES and is a member of the Substa Bureau. He has been closely involved in biodiversity policy development and has played an important role in Armenia's preparation to host CBD COP17. Today, he will introduce the key agenda items for COP17 and provide insights into some of the most important policy discussions expected during the conference. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Karen. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Um, I think as your option of presentation is in Armenian, maybe you will share. I will go through it in parallel. So let's overview the agenda of COP17. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear, yes.
Thank you. So the COP17 agenda contains 31 substantive, 9 procedural, and 1 budget item. As was mentioned by Olivier, there are some procedural items like opening of the meeting, organizational matters, the report of credentials, pending issues, date and venue of future meetings of the conference of the parties, reports on intersessional and regional preparatory meetings, and the budgetary matter is administration of the convention of CBD, budget of trust funds, and functional review of the secretariat. Of course, the main part of COP is the substantial items, which are resource mobilization and financial mechanism, review, global review of progress, monitoring of the
Sorry,
KMBDS.
Mr. Karen,
Yeah, yes.
your connection is a little unstable. We are not able to hear you properly.
I'm trying to use. So, how can you hear now?
Yes, yes, much better.
It's better. Fine. So the substantial items of COP17 agenda are resource mobilization, planning, monitoring, reporting, and review, which contains a global review of collective progress and monitoring framework.
Sorry. Mr. Karen, so sorry. The interpreters are unable to hear you. If you could speak a little closer to the mic, maybe if that is because they are having some difficulty.
I'm using headphones, so
Yes.
is it better again? Can you hear me?
He's saying
Or
that
not?
if you can, the interpreters are asking if you can take off the headphones and try if possible.
Let's try. If they can hear me, I will continue.
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay. So the next agenda item is implementation of Article 8J, which is rather massive and contains a lot of sub-items like modus operandi of the subsidiary body on Article 8J, then implementation of the program of work on Article 8J, guidelines to strengthen the legal and policy framework, targets 2 and 3, process to review and update the voluntary glossary of key terms, in-depth dialogue on Article 8J, recommendations of the Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues. Next slide, please. Yes. Then next item is digital sequence information on genetic resources, matters relating to support mechanisms for the implementation and awareness of the CBD and KMGBF, cooperation with international organizations and bodies, and mainstreaming of biodiversity and engagement with subnational governments. So the top agenda is published. It's accessible. You can go through it more in more detail. I have to say just that this COP17 is burdened more than previous COPs, not only by number of the items, but also the number of items which will obviously need rather difficult negotiations. But this is because of some key issues which have to be discussed during the COP, and main of them is a global review of collective progress. There are also, as Oliver said, also a number of items which will be considered during the so-called MOPs, which are meetings of the parties of the two protocols, Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. They're called COP MOP. So don't be confused. Why COP MOP? So the COP as a meeting, it serves in the same time as a MOP of meeting of the parties of that two protocols. And they have also their own agenda, which is of course interlinked with COP agenda, and some of the items will be considered and negotiated, let's say once, but also will have its outcome like a MOP decision of Nagoya Protocol, NP MOP, or MOP decision of Cartagena Protocol, CP MOP. So let's maybe jump to the. I will ask you also to change slides. To the first green one, which shows that 25 draft documents are prepared. Tori, can you hear me?
Yes, Fatima, can you change it to slide 25?
Yes.
24, sorry.
Slide 12. Yes, this one. So 25 draft documents are already prepared. 10 of them came from Substa 27. As you remember, Substa is one of the bodies. It's a subsidiary body on scientific technical advice. 6 draft documents came from SBA J1. So it was first meeting of subsidiary body AJ last year, and 9 documents came from SBI 6, the subsidiary body on implementation. Other documents will be prepared during upcoming SBI and Substa meetings in July and August this year. As was said, these subsidiary bodies will prepare the recommendations for the COP, for the adoption by COP. Next slide, please. So 23 COP agenda items contain 9 procedural, 31 substantive, and 1 budget, as was said, and 20 CP Cartagena Protocol agenda items, and 18 Nagoya Protocol agenda items. And let's mention the key negotiation areas, that key issues which I've mentioned. So the first one is global review on collective progress. As we already have considered, as I know that on the previous meetings, the KMGBF. So this is the first review of the collective progress of on its implementation. So the task is to assess the collective progress where we are and to decide what to do further, how to improve monitoring framework. This is the key agenda item, such kind of milestone, which will show how can we reach KMGBF targets by 2030. Second one is resource mobilization and financial mechanism, including Kali Fund. And the third one is, let's call it APLC's effective CBD governance, which include the modus operandi of subsidiary body 8J on Article 8J and other SBAJ related items. So a bit detailed about global review on collective progress. The draft global report is prepared by ad hoc scientific expert group, ARSTAC, which was combined following the request of COP16. So this group prepared a massive document, made a great job together with Secretariat. And we have now that draft, which is under peer review now by parties, and its final draft version will be published a week before upcoming Substa meeting. And here I would like to underline some elements, particularly that target 22 is among the targets which for which the collective ambition is rather low. So now next, let's look at the implementation process. The action is taking place across all targets. We're talking about what shows this review. So action is taking place across all targets, and national targets related to global targets 1, 2, 3, 13, 20, 21, and 22 are most commonly assessed as being on track. So we see some interesting picture that parties has not so high ambitions about target 22, for example, but it's well self-assessed. Then overall, the review contains a lot of analytic conclusions. I will not go too much deep to that. I think you can see it in the shared presentation later, which contains also the analysis of our team. If it's interesting, you can go through it. I think overall it's rather understandable that this issue will take a lot of time, maybe about half of all negotiation time during the COP17. So I suggest to go to the resource mobilization and financial mechanism. It's slide 21. So very shortly, the history of this item. COP15 adopted the KMGBF, as you know. COP16 initially operationalized the financial mechanism, and finance becomes the central negotiation track since COP16. SBI subsidiary body on implementation. It shows continuous negotiation track on finance, and Substar develops and reviews indicators and technical basis, fiscal basis of finance as it is discussed at every SBI session since of 15. Which are the sub-items that have to be considered during the COP17? It's the new multilateral mechanism, it's Califund. COP17 will also operationalize the Califund by adoption of the allocation methodology. So this is the key issue of operationalizing of the Califund, how that those funds will be allocated among parties. The draft allocation methodology is created by another expert group, ad hoc technical expert group. A document containing a single methodology option will be submitted to COP for adoption. So the parties will consider this work done by ATEC with Secretariat, and we hope it will be adopted finally, and the Califund may work on the ground. The methodology provides just a couple of words about that methodology. It provides for a floor, so the minimum rate of resources, funds, ensuring a minimum percentage allocation for a party. The remaining allocation would be distributed according to 4 criteria, including 3 criteria which were established by that COP16, which are diversity, richness, geographical origin, capacity needs, and one additional IPLC-related criterion, which was introduced by the expert group itself. Let's go to another key negotiation area, which will be the IPLC's effective CBD governance. So, as you know, new subsidiary body on Article 8J was established at COP16. Modus operandi and other SBAJ related items will be considered by COP17. In fact, the COP17 will finalize the operationalization of the subsidiary body implementation on Article 8J by the adoption of its modus operandi. And besides that, COP17 will also consider, as was said, other issues related with Article 8J. It's the implementation of the program of work on Article 8J and other provisions of the convention related to indigenous people and local communities to 2030. Guidelines to strengthen the legal and policy framework for the implementation of targets 2 and 3 of the KMGBS, and guidelines for inclusion and consideration of traditional lands and of resource use in special planning processes and environmental impact assessments. Another sub-item is process to review and update the voluntary glossary of key terms and concepts within the context of Article 8J. Then it's a process to review and update the voluntary glossary on key terms. Sorry, I'm repeating. Then in-depth dialogue on Article 8J and related provisions of the convention, and recommendations of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. so rather burdened agenda. All these questions are, of course, as any issue, but these are especially, let's say, politicized, which makes these issues rather difficult for negotiation and makes the COP17 really important one. So this is all in few words. If you have any questions, I will ask with my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Karen. Thank you for that in-depth session of what the agenda for COP17 is. Maybe just if we don't have questions in the chat box as yet, so maybe till the time we
Yes, I'm
give
sorry. We
people.
have we have a special window for that. Just
Yes,
let me talk a couple of words to underline what Olivier have said in the beginning of the meeting, because from my experience, I know the main confusions of people who just begin to familiarize with the CBD processes. So COP, Conference of the Parties, it is an event. It is a body, the highest governance body of the convention. The event is that meeting of that COP. So this is important. It was said by Olivier, and I know that it's a bit difficult to remember topics. Thank you very much.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Karen. And yes, I think everyone is probably waiting. So till the time you guys put in your questions or raise your hands, we have another Zoom call just to see how you feel about this. So maybe yes, thanks Fatima for launching that. So basically, the first question is, what do you think parties will mainly discuss under the resource mobilization agenda item? You have CBD Secretariat staff contracts, registration fees for COP17, budget for side event, or how to raise and channel finance to implement the KMGBF. Then the second question is, what is the main purpose of global review of collective process, which is to negotiate new GBF targets, assess whether parties are collectively on track to implement the GBF, electing new bureau members, and reviewing NGO activities. Third, and without looking it up, what do you think the item 10 implementation of 8J primarily about? Mr. Karen's just gone through all of these three things, and we also have something more in depth. So we just wanted to see how much, what and what you all think and have listened to with respect to this. So do not worry, because like I said, it's always like, even if you get it wrong, we constantly learn, and we are all consistently learning. Even within the CBD space, there are new terminologies, there are um, new acronyms to learn from. So we are all on the same boat. Do not worry. So maybe one more minute, and then maybe I can give to Mr. Karen to share. If you, Mr. Karen, if you are able to see, maybe you can share what the right answers are. So maybe we can end poll now, Fatima, and share the poll results. I'll hand over to Mr. Karen to share with us what the right answers are for these questions, and what have been the response from people.
So the first question was, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First question was, so what do you think parties will mainly discuss under the resource mobilization agenda item? And here the most of our participants have given the right answer. how to raise and channel finance to implement the KMGBF. The next one was what is the main purpose of item 9, global review of collective progress. And here also most of people have given the right answer. It's assessing whether parties are collectively on track to implement the GBF. But the second answer here, which many people has given, is negotiating new GBF targets. I think this may be just confusion related with that they're not so familiar with terminology, but we may count that this answer is also relevant if not follow the strict terminology. And the third question was, without looking it up, what do you think item 10 implementation of Article 8J is primarily about? Obviously, it's about traditional knowledge and the rights and participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. And here also the most of participants have given the right answer. Great result, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carrick, for sharing that. And yes, I think as more of you keep familiarizing yourself with the COP17 agenda, but also like what is happening within CBD, and we've also put some links into the chat box about the provisional agenda that you can read on, like exactly what Mr. Karen shared, but in your own sweet time, kind of sit down and look at the documents. And so, if you are keen to follow what kind of things are going to happen prior to COP and leading up to COP, there are a bunch of meetings. You can also follow in the meeting link. And there are documents, there are a lot of things. So each one of you with your own expertise can use this particular links to continue following all the COP17 related discussions. So I'm going to stop now at this point and see if there are any questions. And please feel free to raise your hand. Or even if you're feeling shy, you can put it in the chat box. But I do encourage some of you, if you were to ask, and it could be anything. It could be something to do with like how, even participation, like how do you engage and how do you negotiate? So are there any questions? Yes, Christine, over to you.
Thank you very much. I have a quick question. I'd appreciate if you could share any link or information which can show side events or any gender-related events which are on the topic of renewable energy, energy efficiency, energy audit, or any related topics to those.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Let's clarify that two locations for side events are scheduled during all the COPs. First one is a blue zone, and second one is green zone. So blue zone is official part of the COP, and all the side events in the blue zone are scheduled by Secretariat. So they receive the requests for the applications for the side events, adopt the part of them, and then publish on the CBD website. I can share now that web page. You can see regarding the green zone, it's more free. You can also propose your own side event if you want, if you have what to showcase. And these side events and the program of Green Zone will be published on the official site of COP17 also. And I will share now the relevant web page of the Secretariat's website.
Thank you, Mr. Karen, for that. Definitely, I think the information of the green and blue zone would help all the organizations also, because I'm sure there are a lot of women's organizations here who would be keen to come together and put together an event, even if it is in the green zone, since the blue zone's last day to submit side events are over. I don't know, Olivia, do you want to say anything, add anything to what Mr. Karen has said?
Sure. Instead, the deadline for submission of proposal for side events has closed on the 30th of June. The Secretary has received proposals, so we go through a process of selecting, distributing the side events. Will be published after that exercise is done. As you can imagine, it's a long exercise of compiling, selecting, and making sure that events are located thematically in a balanced way. Further to that, a couple of things, just to understand that, of course, there's the blue zone, where it's an action-oriented zone. We have also the GBF Pavilion, where we have thematic days, which will also be confirmed very soon. And of course, the green zone, which is a little bit more of a space, exhibition space, a bit more freer with less restriction outside of the perimeters of the Conference of the Parties. So we have this different areas. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier, for this. I think it's quite, yes, Christine, is that,
Yes, sorry, just one clarification, please. That's the information I had as the latest update, that the registration for side events was closed by June 30th. Am I right in assuming that the final information after confirming all these side events will be available soon on the official website? So we can consider that final and communicate with the side event or organizers to join their side events in terms of presenting topics on renewable energy and related topics. Thank you.
Olivier, do you want to respond?
Yes, once we publish the list of side events, it's a final sort of publication. So as soon as you see the list of side events, yes, please, we invite you to contact the proponents of the side events that you would like to work with to make arrangements. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Olivier. We have one more question. So Anna has said, could you provide an update on Armenia's financial commitments as of now? Anna, do you want to come in and ask exactly what you mean by financial commitments?
Yes, sure. Thank you. This question is for Mr. Karen Khachatryan, and my question is about what is or how much is Armenia's commitment on the agenda. I mean, on the biodiversity national program that we have committed already, and what are we going to do during this COP17 to commit or not some more money?
Thank you very much for your question. So if we're talking about finances, and I can say that our financial commitments are not in the frame of this COP. Financial commitments, let's say more correctly to say the financial needs are indicated in our NBSUP, National Biodiversity Action Strategy and Action Plan. I can't remember now the numbers, but it's published, so you can go through it and look at that financial information, which is also detailed by targets, by actions. So the COP doesn't provide for special financial commitments for, as I have understood from the question, for biodiversity policy or implementation of some activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Karen, for that. And thank you both so much for setting the stage. We are now going to move on to the next round of presentations where we have members from the CBD Women's Caucus who've been actively engaged in the various CBD negotiation agenda items that you just heard, and will share perspective on several important of them under discussions for COP17. So with that, our first speaker is Christina Genter. She currently serves as a Global Governance Policy Coordinator at WWF International and is also a board member of the CBD Women's Caucus. She brings more than 2 decades of experience working on biodiversity conservation, indigenous people, local communities' rights, and gender-responsive environmental governance. And today, Christina will discuss the global review process and why it is important for monitoring implementation, the convention and the KMGBF. Welcome, Christina, and over to you.
Thank you, Shruti, and good to meet you all on this last session of the training, which I followed. So it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I can share a little bit of information and experience on the global review and global report process. So if you can share the slides. Okay. So my focus is really on planning, monitoring, reporting, and review, which has this nice, hard to pronounce acronym PMRR. But what is important here is that there were 2 decisions, one at COP15, where parties agreed to adopt a multidimensional approach and a new mechanism, PMRR, and to ensure enhanced responsibility, transparency, and share accountability. There was another decision at COP16 where procedures for undertaking the global review, which is part of the PMRR, was decided and established. And there was also an ad hoc scientific technical advisory group that was formed at the time to support the development and the drafting of the global report. So when we talk about multidimensional, we are talking about 4 dimensions, basically. The planning, which is about the national biodiversity strategies and action plans, which are revised, they're being revised by parties or updated. And the numbers I put there, 45% of parties, maybe it's an old figure, but not so old. It means that only less than 50% of the parties were able to update or revise their NBSUPs by the time they were due at COP16. And but national targets, 82% of parties submitted their national targets. So the other dimension is about monitoring, and an important innovation, a first time for the CBD process was that the global biodiversity framework was, when it was approved, a COP, it also came with an agreed monitoring framework to measure collective progress towards the targets. And this is done through a set of high-level indicators called headline indicators, which parties are expected to report on in their national reports. Binary indicators for some parties, including Target 23, the gender equality target, which are also mandatory, and plus there are national targets, of course, that parties can choose to develop to measure their progress, but also component and complementary indicators available. The third dimension is about reporting. So national reports were taken into consideration for the global report, and therefore for the global review, I will come back to that line of command, were submitted at the end of February 26, and there were a record number of 129 national reports submitted. And plus the fourth and review dimension, and two global reviews were agreed, one in 26. That is why this is such an important item, an important process to take place during COP17 in Yerevan in October. And the second one, so it's a sort of a midterm review, and 2030 will be the second review. But before we switch to the other, or as we switch to the other slide, it's important to say that this is a new mechanism. And what does that mean? That the learning component of this process is also very important. That might allow for adjustments and flexibility to adjust and accommodate and improve. So a little bit more on the next slide. Is it? Yes. I cannot read Armenian, of course, but I recognize things on the slides. Yeah, this is the right one. So I put a simple supply chain image of an arrow. What is the relation between a global national report, a global report, and a global review? So basically, national reports are the main source of information, and for the global report. The global report is technical, we can define it that way, a technical exercise, a scientific assessment of collective, not party by party, collective progress on the achieving the targets as per commitment in at COP15 when the Global Biodiversity Framework was approved. And the global report will be the main basis for the global review. And the process of the global review will basically take place at COP17. What are the global report, which was out for peer review for the month of June, just ended. Peer review by parties, of course, and non-state actors as well. Covers what is happening in terms of collective ambition, the implementation of the framework, how indicators were used, looking also at challenges, gaps, and opportunities, as reported by parties, and also has a concluding section on non-prescriptive options for addressing challenges, gaps, and opportunities, which of course are not recommendation, but more about findings that can help the discussion and the negotiation during the global review. So the global review in this respect is not so much a technical exercise, but is more of a political process to take stock among parties of progress in the implementation, and how parties can choose, take the outcome and the findings of the global review and the global report into account to revise, adjust, or improve implementation of their MBSAPs. So just in brief, that before the global report, this new mechanism, there was a Global Biodiversity Outlook publications that provided an assessment of progress in implementing the convention. And there's big difference between a global report and the GBO, or Global Biodiversity Outlook. It was the use of data. So the global report is really based on the main sources, national reports, while for the GBO, there was a lot of sourcing global published data. Okay, next, so let's look inside the global report very briefly. What is the global report telling us? So among some of the main gaps and challenges, one is that implementation is not on track. So much more has to be done in terms of implementation and supporting implementation by parties. That national targets collectively fall short of the scope and ambition of the global targets. So it's a matter of a mismatch in between the level of ambition. And this might explain, of course, also why implementation is not on track, insufficient means of implementation. And here we are talking about resources, financial resources, but also technical resources, capacities, and so on. And some parties in some regions suffer more from that than others. Another important finding is that drivers targets, so-called drivers targets, are targets really addressing the root causes of the problem of biodiversity loss, so to speak, like target 14, 15, 16 on 16 is on sustainable consumption, 15 is 14 is on biodiversity mainstreaming, 15 is on business, 18 is on the incentives, 19, as you know, and you heard, is about financial commitments and resource mobilization. All these targets are less addressed than traditional targets, especially target 3 is an example, which is, as you know, the target on protected and conserved areas. So participation, there is this aspect of targets are very complex. If you have looked at them, they have they're composite targets in a way. They're made up of several elements, quantitative as well as qualitative elements. Overall, in the global report is telling us that not all the elements of targets are addressed. So that also explains why the ambition might be below what is expected, because if you're not, the targets expect that all the elements of it are being addressed in order to achieve that particular target. But that's not quite the case. And also particularly qualitative elements of it around participation, about something like equitable governance, which is in target 3, and not even less addressed than quantitative targets. There are challenges with methodology, how to measure and report on these elements. Whole of society and whole of government that we know are very important aspects of the GBF when it was approved are used, are applied, but inconsistently and sometimes weakly applied. So there is a need to, an effort to do that more and more consistently. And parties also reported several challenges on the use of indicators, monitoring, and of course, limited data disaggregation. But time may also explain some of these challenges, because there was really a short time in between the revision of the MBSAPs by parties, and when the national reports were due. So it was a time crunch for many, and that could explain some of the difficulties. And but let's look at the
Christina?
positive. Yes?
Sorry, I just have to remind you of 2 minutes. So
Yeah, I am on the last slide. So just to end up with a more positive note on opportunities, again, what the global report is telling us. So the important learning component, as I said in the beginning, because this is a new mechanism, the opportunity that parties highlight for peer-to-peer learning and exchanges that can work to inspire each other, to improve and scale up models that work, the importance of engaging and involving in effective ways non-state actors, especially indigenous people, local communities, women, youth, and other rights holders. They should really be partners in implementation and help with the achievement of the targets and the goal. Access to finance, that is clear, that needs to reach everybody in fair ways. And also consider the role that regional and sub-regional technical and scientific cooperation centers can play in terms of supporting the parties in reporting and monitoring, and therefore in the overall review process. So I'll conclude here. Just the last slide just mentioned what's coming up, but that was already mentioned in between now and Yerevan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for that succinct outline of what the global review and the global report process is, and what are the key things that is emerging from this. Maybe we will discuss a little more on this during the Q&A. With that, I want to invite the next speaker with us, who is Ms. Laura Bermudez. You would have seen Laura in the previous training session on implementation, where she spoke about the national reporting. So it's quite honored to have Laura again join us, who is an environmental lawyer with extensive experience in biodiversity policy and environmental governance, climate change, and sustainable development. She's also previously worked with the Colombia's Ministry of Environment and National Parks, coordinated the update of Colombia's MBSAP, and was part of the organizing and negotiating team for CBD COP16. So she is a very, very valuable member that we have. And today she will introduce discussions taking place under the SPHA, which is a subsidiary body, sorry, my bad, subsidiary body on Article 8J, and explain their relevance within the broader CBD process. Laura, over to you.
Thank you, Shruti, and good day for everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again with the people from Armenia, and especially the women that are interested in this COP17. And thank you, Dr. Karen, also for sharing with us your knowledge from the Armenian Ministry of Environment. So for this topic, next please, I want to introduce you a little bit with some uh, um, elements from the Article 8J and other related provisions. First of all, I want to say that the Article 8 is an article of the text from the CBD Convention. This is important because many people said, why 8 and why J? So 8 is the article of the convention, and J is the literal of this article. So this article has many literals, and the Article 8 is about the in situ conservation, and specifically the literal J is related to to respect, preserve, and maintain knowledge, and it's not on traditional knowledge. In this article, we can find the complete sentence that include, or the concept that include not only knowledge, but also innovations and practices. So knowledge, innovation, and practices is the key element from the Article 8J. And this knowledge, innovation, and practices is related to indigenous and local communities. So it's that knowledge that the communities has in relation with the biodiversity in their territories. So the literal J speaks about how to respect, preserve, and maintain this knowledge and innovations. And this is very important because we assume from the CBD perspective that the indigenous and local communities embodying traditional lifestyles relevant for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity, and also this article promote their wider application with the approval and involvement of the holders of such knowledge. And also other important element in this article is to encourage the equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of such knowledge, innovation, and practices.
Alert from low battery.
Sorry, I need to connect my computer. 10 seconds.
Yes, Laura, of course, technology has always been a boon and a bane in our times, but yes. Maybe while we wait, oh yes, Laura's
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, sorry. Next, please. So with this context about what is AJ and what is traditional knowledge, innovation, and practices, it's important to say that for more than 25 years, we discuss the issues related AJ or traditional knowledge in the context of the CBD in some informal way. And for that, we as a CBD community, we create an ad hoc working group related to discuss these matters related to AJ. So this working group was very interesting because we found the IPLCs, the indigenous people and local communities, set with the governments to discuss the issues related to traditional knowledge. That was for 25 years, and that was a very interesting experience for those who probably Dr. Karen was in some of those working groups. In those working groups, we discussed the guidelines, mainly the guidelines for the protection of the traditional knowledge. And this working group produced 3 to 4 type of guidelines, the guidelines for repatriation of traditional knowledge, guidelines to protect the traditional knowledge, and also a glossary of the traditional knowledge, and the ethic code for the use of traditional knowledge, because these kind of elements are very important for the use of the biodiversity and the use also for the genetic resources, which is a very important discussion right now in the context of the CBD. So with that story about the more than 25 years, finally, in the context of the global biodiversity framework, the discussion after 2020 and the discussion on how will be the new goals and targets for 2030, the IPLCs, the indigenous people and local communities, and other stakeholders propose to have other scenario, more formal scenario to discuss the AJ. That's why we finally, after like 3-4 years of negotiation, we got from the COP15 to COP16. We got at COP16 here in Cali, Colombia. I'm in Colombia in 2024. We finally took the decision 16/5 about establish the subsidiary body on Article 8J, which is a formal scenario, a formal body into the CBD. As you have remember, we have two subsidiary bodies in the CBD until this COP16. The SBI, which is the subsidiary body related to implementation, and the SOBSTA, which is the subsidiary body related to scientific and technical issues. And this will be, or this is right now, the third subsidiary body on Article 8J and other provisions to the convention related to indigenous people and local communities. So this SBAJ has the mandate to provide advice to the conference of the parties and and the protocols, Nagoya and Cartagena protocols, on matters that are relevant for indigenous people and local communities, not only traditional knowledge, but also other matters related to these issues with IPLCs, in the scope, of course, of the convention and its protocols. Next, please. So with that development of this issue, SBAJ will be discussing very interesting agenda items that will be discussing in the next SBI and in the next subsidiary bodies. I need to remember that the first meeting of the subsidiary body on AJ was the last year in Panama in November, and it was for the first time in the story of the convention. It was one meeting related to AJ, celebrating the creation of this important subsidiary body. So in Panama in November 2025, we discussed some agenda items that will be discussing a negotiation in the COP17. One of those agenda items is this agenda item 10 about the implementation of the Article 8J. And it has very important subjects into this item. The first one is the modus operandi of the subsidiary body, because we don't have yet the whole functioning rules to operate the subsidiary body. So we will be discussing this modus operandi. And the second one, and the very important and the substantial point here, is the implementation of the proper program of work of the Article 8J. Because we have there many elements that are important to implement this article for 2023 and beyond. The first one is the guidelines to strengthen the legal and policy framework for the implementation targets 2 and target 3 of the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which are the targets related to restoration and also conservation areas, especially in traditional indigenous and traditional territories. And there is some task related specific with this point that you can find in this legal and policy framework. And then we also have the process to review and update one thing that is important to understand the AJ and the implementation, which is the voluntary glossary of key terms and concepts. As you know, in international negotiation, is not too easy to define concepts and to agree on the minimum elements that a concept needs to have. So that's why it's important to have this voluntary glossary. Next, please. And also we will discussing another important point, which is the in-depth dialogue in Article 8J. And this time is a key element that we has been discussed also in the context of the negotiation of the Global Biodiversity Framework, which is the strategies for mobilizing resources to ensure the availability and access to financial resources and funding, as well as other means on implementation, including capacity building, development and technical support for Indigenous people and local communities, including women and youth, to support, of course, the full implementation of the Common Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This point is very important, and as we will have Amelia in the next point talking about this important matter. And finally, for the agenda items for COP17 in the SBAJ is the recommendation from the Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues from the United Nations, which has been making important recommendation that has been including in these items related to traditional knowledge and other provisions related to Indigenous people and local communities. I guess I will stop there, and I will be here for other comments and questions. Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that and very interesting history and capturing what important topic for a lot of organizations are working with local communities and indigenous people, especially here who are joined. So this gives a good context. And nothing is, I think, money and funds are something that is very crucial in today's day and time, especially and we cannot go ahead without any kind of resource mobilization or financial mechanism. And for that, we have our dear coordinator from CBD Women's Caucus, Amelia, who is going to quickly share what have been the discussions and what will you expect for this COP17. So over to you, Amelia.
Thank you so much, Shruti, and I will try to be brief and as clear as possible for this item that is also one of the most complex, as Mr. Karen has shared, and is expected to be one of the most polemic as well. Just a bit of background to help us picture why this item is as relevant as mentioned is because coming out from the previous strategic framework, no, the Aichi targets, one of the main lessons learned back then of why we didn't achieve them was because there weren't enough resources. There was no money to implement such a strategic framework. And different studies identify what we are calling now the biodiversity finance gap that amounts for trillions of dollars, no, that are needed if the biodiversity policies are going to be implemented. So the big question was, how are we going to close that finance gap? How are we going to make money flow to the government so they can implement their MBSAPs, no? And any other organization to contribute to the implementation of the GBF? So by COP16, after different years of negotiations, the CBD adopted the resource mobilization strategy that covered a 5-year period, trying to couple with the GBF, no? Like let's try to do in 5 years what we were supposed to do in 10 years and try to get as much money as possible to implement it. I think that was, in simple words, the big challenge. But how is it going? Also, some other studies, one of the main coming out from UNEP itself is saying that the numbers are not increasing, that the public international flows are actually continue to be the first main source of funds, to the contrary of what their strategy was supposed to invite. They were saying that both at the public and at domestic level, there should be mobilization of funds that should be public, but also should be private money. But the reality that we continue to see is that it's mostly the public international money, the one that continues to support implementation of biodiversity policies. And as well, in parallel with this context, we all are aware that we have that the geopolitical context changed in the last 5 years, and we are not only not having the money expected, but the money out there at national and international, it's been allocated for other priorities that are actually negative or that have negative impacts on biodiversity. So having that context, what is going to be discussed in COP17, as shared and explained by Olivier, is that what is going to be on the table on COP17 has already been discussed both in SBI 6 and will be discussed now in Substat 28 and SBI 7. Just to mention, and you will have time to go through these slides, and we will give you also links to the documents, the official documents, is that trying to understand better why or how to mobilize those resources, the CBD is now discussing a series of impediments, like there was a mandated study to trying to understand which are those challenges or those obstacles to mobilize the resources. And there are 7 impediments that were identified, such as policy misalignment, like governments are investing in negative subsidies for development projects, for agriculture, intensive agriculture projects, but not investing in biodiversity conservation. The macroeconomic and public finance scenario, as mentioned, not only the geopolitical changes, but topics about debt, topics about fiscal constraints, other problem that was mentioned is that we actually don't know how much money is there and how is it flowing, because there's no way of monitoring. Like OECD monitors something, the GEF monitors something else, but we don't have really a full picture of how much money is there, because there's also a bit of double counting on how much money is being allocated for climate, for example, and sometimes countries count that as biodiversity finance. So there is a bit of confusion of actually how much money. But general sense is that, because of actually what Christina explained as well, is that we don't have the resources. If we had the resources, then the global report will be telling us something different, right? And that's what one of the main topics that's going to be discussed in SBI 7, which are those impediments to mobilize resources. But one of the questions that we're doing as caucus is that this process is really going slow, because the CBD took 3 years to agree on the resource mobilization strategy. It's taking 2 years to analyze those impediments or obstacles. And then this decision is also saying that for COP18, they're gonna agree on actions to address those impediments. So actually, by the time when the GBF should be implemented, we're gonna still be discussing why we don't have the money that we need. And that is one of the highlights and advocacy points that we're bringing to COP17, that we need to speed this, that we need to mobilize the resources, that there are obligations that should be met, and that we don't have time to keep losing in developing studies and studies and studies. And related to this, if we go to the next slide, which is my last slide as well, is because the resource mobilization strategy also comes encompassed with the financial mechanism item. Resource mobilization, as mentioned, is how much money is there, how is it flowing, and the financial mechanism sub-item is about a particular entity that is there to manage the funds. There has to be money, but then who's responsible to receive it and to allocate it to governments? That is the main role of the financial mechanism. So after COP15 and the GBF was adopted, there was a huge question on the table about if the Global Environment Facility that has been acting as the financial mechanism is or should be or must continue to be, that there are different interpretations about what is the status of the Global Environment Facility. And there, after COP15, we are now on a roadmap on discussing if and how the Global Environmental Facility or another new created fund or other fund should play the role of being that entity that should manage the international money for implementing biodiversity. So what has been discussed in SBI 6 and what will be discussed in SBI 7 will be agreed on COP17 in this track on the financial mechanism. On SBI 6, what was discussed was about different terms of reference for the Global Environment Facility to for its review of effectiveness. No, because since governments are trying to decide if they should ratify, let's call it like that, ratify the GEF as the financial mechanism, they want to understand better if it's fit for purpose, if it's the entity that we need at the moment to manage the money. So they are trying to understand better what the GEF is doing good, what the GEF should do better. So they in SBI they discuss this the terms of reference for the review of effectiveness, but also in parallel they are discussing about identifying the funding needs beyond 2030. Like if you see there are conversations that are like interlocking some stuff that are going slow, but they are also looking into the future after 2030. There are many things on the table, and I'm not gonna be able to cover everything. I just wanted to flag the different streams within this item. And for those that have been joining the Women's Caucus, you know that we are discussing this in more dedicated policy conversations. So you all are invited. And just to mention what is going to happen in SBI 7 is that while they decide if GEF continue to be, or if there's the need for another mechanism, one thing that they are agreeing in SBI 7 is which are the criteria to make such decision, against which criterion we should how you say qualify, or how we're gonna evaluate the mechanism or mechanisms. So there's a list of criteria that the governments are agreeing on. But one thing that we want to flag to you all, it's a particular 3 criteria that were advocated by the rights holders groups, and in SBI 7, therefore COP17 is going to be crucial because they are being pushed out of the official list of criterion. And one of it is we are asking that whichever going to be the financial mechanism should ensure that there is direct access to funds, that indigenous peoples, local communities, women and youth could have access to those funds. And we are advocating for that to be one of the criteria. Other criteria is for the inclusive governance, for every country to have a vote directly into the financial mechanism, and for rights holders to also have a voice in the discussion. And the third criteria is for whichever financial mechanism to have a grievance mechanism. Like if something is going wrong with the money that's being allocated and the projects that are being financed, there should be a way of local actors to voice those situations. And at the moment, these 3 criterions that have been advocated by rights holders are not in the official list. And if we don't organize ourselves and if we don't get engaged in dialogues with governments, most likely these won't be included as official criteria to make such decision. I will stop here, Shruti. I know it has been a lot of information, and I'll be attentive in case there's questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amelia, wow, it's mind-boggling, constant conversations about resource mobilization and financial mechanism, and I think you did a brilliant job explaining. Thank you so much for giving us your time. In the interest of, because we are also running a little late, I'm just please continue to keep your questions in the chat box, and we will tag the potential speakers if you have, and they will respond. We will now move on to the closing session at this point in the interest of time. And to conclude today's program, we are honored to be joined by distinguished representatives who will share some reflections and on today's discussion and the importance of inclusive participation in CBD COP17. First, we have first closing speaker is Mr. Armenian. He who is the Deputy Minister of Environment of the Republic of Armenia. Since 2022, he has overseen national policies on biodiversity conservation, protected areas, forest policy, and climate change. He serves on the COP17 committee and is Armenia's national focal point to the UN framework, UNFCCC. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Deputy Minister, Mr. Aram Mehmaran. Over to you. Mr. Aram? Could you, I do see you here. Are you able to unmute yourself? Are you facing any issues? Can you hear us? Maybe there might be some issue with the next, I mean, with this, with the technical issue, maybe probably. So we may move on to the next speaker. You would have already heard from him. He and Olivia did a wonderful job in helping us understand what CBD COP is, what the agenda are. So maybe, and he's been through the entire thing with us right now. So maybe, Olivia, please, over to you. What are your key closing reflections after the almost 8 weeks of this training session? So please, over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, on behalf of the CBD Secretariat, I'd like to very much thank the organizers of this COP training, which are sort of tied into a roadmap towards preparation for COP17. I'd like to thank the organizers for having this initiative to actually bring the level playing field in terms of preparation for COP17 for the constituencies that you have on your site and for all the work that you're doing in preparation, not only for COP17, but also in the process of leading up to COP17. As far as the Secretariat is concerned, we deem that this initiative is very important. And again, we salute the efforts of the organizers and the board of the Women's Caucus in particular for their engagement and for their clear communication of stated goals with us, the CBD Secretariat, so that we can partner with you in all the endeavors that you will have before we get into COP17. COP17 will be a milestone COP for issues that are at hand and that we're considering here, in particular issues related to gender, as we will have the midterm review of the Gender Plan of Action, which will actually define the next steps and the way forward in terms of the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action. This represents a crucial moment and an opportunity to craft messages that will entice further action and commitments towards the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action to its next phase. So we count on you, all of you, the organizers of this wonderful event, to continue this team and to continue the work with regards to promoting gender equality, gender mainstreaming, and other issues related to gender in the CBD processes. And we commit as Secretariat to be alongside of you, to assist you and to help you and facilitate actions that you will be taking on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you so much. And for that's really, really inspiring conversation. We do have Mr. Aram back here again. Mr. Aram, back over to you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. And I'm so sorry that I had some technical issues, but now it's solved. I'm here. I'm happy to be with you. and I'm so happy that I have the privilege to make a closing remarks. So thank you very much for this opportunity. So dear colleagues, as we come to the end of this training session, on behalf of the Ministry of Environment of Armenia, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the CBD Women's Caucus, the Convention of Biological Diversity Secretariat, the Raoul Wallenberg Institute, other supporters and partners, all speakers for their valuable contribution to excellent cooperation. First, I would like to thank all Armenian women organizations and participants for your active engagement throughout this program. Your interest and commitment demonstrate the growing role of women in biodiversity conservation and environmental governance in Armenia. Meaningful participation begins with knowledge and discussions. During the online sessions have strengthened our common understanding of the Convention of Biological Diversity, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and the opportunities to contribute to CBD COP17. Second, this initiative is much more than a series of training sessions. It represents an important step forward, strengthening women's participation in biodiversity policy and decision-making, building a stronger community of women leaders, experts, and civil society organizations for the exchange of knowledge and experience might actively contribute to biodiversity action at the national and international levels. We are particularly pleased to see women's organizations from a broad range of sectors participating in this program. The engagement demonstrates that biodiversity is not only an environmental issue and provides a strong foundation for biodiversity mainstreaming across different sectors. Finally, as Armenia prepares to host CBD COP17, we believe that inclusive participation is essential for achieving the goals of the convention. You have already aware that the global framework recognizes that biodiversity conservation requires a whole of society approach, and Target 23 specifically highlights the importance of gender equality and the meaningful and informed participation, as well as leadership of women and girls. We therefore see the active engagement of women's organizations not simply as participation, but as an important contribution to more effective, equitable, and sustainable biodiversity governance. In closing, I hope that the partnership established through this initiative will continue well beyond COP17 and will become ambassadors of this knowledge, sharing it with their organizations and communities and encouraging even broader participation of women in biodiversity-related processes. We are ready to continue working together to strengthen women's leadership, promote gender-responsive biodiversity action, and ensure that the legacy of Armenia's COP17 presidency is one of the inclusion and lasting impact. Thank you once again for your participation, your commitment, and your valuable contributions. We look forward to continue this journey with you together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Aram, for that inspiring speech. And we hope that all the women's organizations who joined us today in this session and been joining us for the last 4 will find space in the CBD COP17 and even before and continue to help with the negotiations because they're equally key players. So thank you so much, Mr. Aram. The next speaker we do have is Ms. Laura Milne. Ms. Laura is the country director for the Raoul Wallenberg Institute's Armenia's office, who is one of our co-partners for this training session and brings more than 15 years of international experience advancing human rights, gender equality, access to justice, and rule of law across several regions. We are delighted to hear her reflection. Ms. Laura, over to you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everybody. I'd like to start by thanking everybody for their very active participation throughout this training series. I'd like to extend my very sincere thanks to the Women's Caucus for their efforts and enthusiasm in bringing together and creating a space for civil society to learn from each other and to receive important inputs from key stakeholders when it comes to COP. Also, of course, our thanks to the COP presidency, to the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and to the CBD Secretariat and our expert speakers, and everyone that's contributed to making these important sessions possible. As Armenia prepares to host COP17, and I should say sitting here in Yerevan, it is a very frequent topic of conversation among all of my friends and pretty much every work meeting I have. Civil society, we must not lose sight of the incredibly important role that CSOs play in ensuring that biodiversity policies and decisions are inclusive, they're rights-based, and they're gender responsive. At the Raoul Wallenberg Institute, we are very much looking forward to continuing our work through our COP17 programming. We have a very wide range of activities underway and planned in the run-up and during COP17. Some of those activities focus on supporting women's leadership, including through an upcoming series of events on gender and biodiversity. More information will be shared about those in the coming weeks, but those activities will be open to all civil society organizations working on women's rights who have participated in this series of online sessions. And we will share more information as they come. And again, we'll be working with our partners, the Women Caucus, on delivering those, in addition to other partners as well, including but not limited to UN Women, and of course to the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are working extensively to support participation of young people, increasing awareness of environmental rights and the COP process. We have conducted trainings across the regions, and at the beginning of August, we'll be hosting a model COP simulation with the objective of bringing together both Armenian and international youth to help them understand and experience what COP17 aims to achieve and how young people can engage in that process. We're also working with journalists, working with universities, and we very much welcome new opportunities for collaboration with civil society to support their engagement and participation in COP. So please do not hesitate to get in touch with us here at RWI. I think most of you probably know my colleague Melina, who is leading this. We are very much looking forward to working together with those that have participated in these sessions and others in the months ahead to help ensure that COP leaves a lasting legacy for biodiversity, for human rights, and inclusive environmental governance in Armenia. Of course, it doesn't end with COP, and we'll be looking forward to creating opportunities to continue working together through 2027 as well. So with that, I say thank you very much and look forward to meeting many of you to continue conversations in person soon.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that. And we actually look forward to engaging in continuing our engagement. And also great to hear that there's so many things lined up. And if anyone here who is part of this wants to know more, you know who to reach out to, and we will definitely share more info. We'll definitely share the contact so that you can reach out directly to Millie. With that, finally, we are honored to welcome Mishi, Moana Mishi Singano. So you can call her Mishi. That's what we all also lovingly call her. As part of the CBD Women's Caucus, she is the Global Policy Director at WeDo and serves on the board of CBD Women's Caucus. She is an African feminist and gender justice advocate with more than 15 years of experience advancing women's rights, environmental justice, and gender responsive biodiversity governance across international environmental processes. Please join me in welcoming Mishi. Thank you for joining. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think my job is quite easy after everything that has been said. It's really to thank all our partners who have worked together to really design this training, like in my personal view, and I believe this is the view that also shared by the Women Caucus, that this is what meaningful participation look like. We have seen in several COPs that when COP happen in a specific country, the only thing that the host do is just, for example, to provide accreditation, but often these partners, especially like local organization, engage in the process uninformed and aware on how the process learn and unsupported. So having this process from the beginning, like earlier on in the process, is a true testimony of meaningful participation look like. And I believe for colleagues who have been in this training for all this session, you feel now a little bit more equipped to engage in the COP processes, but more importantly that this training has built a significant network, and we really encourage all of you that has attended to hold on to this community, to hold on to each other, because for anyone who have been in COP, any COP of the Rio Convention, they will tell you how complicated the process is, and even though we have given you all the information you need, but still there will be a lot of questions. There will be a different experience that every COP brings, and you'll benefit a lot from being part of the community. So that being said, my one last important comment is also to remind you that while this is training, like it's really happened in an important time, we all know, as you all the facilitators and speakers have said, we did had quite an ambitious biodiversity goals and target, but achieving these goals depends on how inclusive and effective implementation is. And implementation in most cases is done at country level. So as much as you have this information to engage at the global process, it's also important to take this knowledge and ensure that your engagement at national level is actually robust and impactful as well. The training really aimed to bridge the knowledge gap and strengthening your participation in a couple processes. It gave you knowledge, it gave you capacities, and more importantly, in my view, I believe, and I would be happy to hear from you, I believe it build your confidence on how to engage, on how you can engage in these processes. And again, as I said, it created a network that will be critical. So, as we conclude, getting knowledge is one thing. Using that knowledge to make sure that it creates an impact is the next thing. And my call to all of you, kindly use that knowledge. The world is waiting for you to lead the change that you want to see. And with that, allow me to thank the Women Caucus team on behalf. Now I'm taking on my capacity as the board to thank our colleagues who have been working tirelessly to organize this training. So Amelia, Shorshi, and all other members who have engaged, but also to thank the board who have presented today. I see Christina, but also to thank Fatma from our team as well for all the leadership. Patrick, I cannot name all of you, but it has been a really collaborative journey. And to all our partner, Armenia government and Secretariat, we really appreciate your support. You're doing this, and I believe this should be now set as the model on how we engage in the COP to comes. So with that, allow me to pass back to the facilitator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mishi. Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful ending. It's not the end, but it's just the beginning. And like you said, building knowledge is not enough. We have to now learn and build that confidence to be able to apply it and be engaged with it. Thank you so much for that. Before we go, we want to take some time to, if you can, switch on your cameras so that we can take a quick group picture. And also at the same time, I want to take this time to actually thank also the interpreters who've been there with us from the beginning. Shoshanik and Vladimir, who've been there and been a continued, constant support so that we reach to as many of you as possible. Thank you so much, and a huge round of applause for both of them for being there throughout the post session. So, Fatima, are you taking the photo? Let me know. Maybe you can give us a cue on when to pose.
Yes, 3, 2, 1. Smile to the camera. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatima. Good day, good evening, good night to all of you at whichever part of the world, and hope to see you all in Yerevan. And before that, please do join the caucus and let's continue engaging. Thank you all. Thank you to all the speakers. See you all. Have a good day. Bye bye.